All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to what looks like a wacky Wednesday morning and what should hopefully, right, continue to be a very strong trading week here for us with an incredible amount of daily volatility. We're continuing to see obviously a market, right, that is very headline driven, right? We are moving pretty aggressively here, higher, lower on both real headlines, fake headlines, morning headlines, overnight headlines. It's a certain element of chaos here over the last little bit, and it's a market, right, that continues to be very, very aggressive, and giving us a pretty tremendous amount of daily range. Again, here this morning, right, we are making lower lows, been down as much as sort of 2% here, going into the session. And it's been, I don't know what the right term is, but it almost feels like the craziest price action since kind of like the COVID pandemic drop. Kind of feels like it's in that sort of category. And yeah, kind of like an outlier period here of market volatility. I think what makes a lot of this price action challenging, right, is just kind of the size of the moves, which sounds maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but it makes it a little bit more emotional, right, as we have an expectation of getting bigger follow through. Kind of like a bigger element of hopium attached with each decision, and we want to make sure that we're effectively fighting against those emotions and just sticking to our rules, sticking to our program, sticking right to the trades that we know make us money, and kind of ignoring all the other bullshit variables or distractions, right, that might want to trick us there in the meantime. Yesterday, I sent an email out to everyone, right, kind of talking about position sizing and how position sizing is ultimately the biggest differentiator between profitable trading, right, unprofitable trading, and being able to determine what is actually making you money or costing you money. And yesterday's email kind of coincided right after a session where our position sizing and our risk reward ratios really kept us in the game and allowed us to finish the day green, right? And that's going to continue to be a pretty consistent narrative here for me, where I want to focus on the variables I can't control, and I want to rein in some of those like emotional expectations that I place on myself so that I can trade with a clear, cool, calm, and collected head. I think it's also worth acknowledging, right, that this market sell-off has been painful. Not necessarily been painful here in a day trading perspective. We've done a very good job here managing kind of our risk. We've done a good job here making money, and it has been a profitable period. But long-term portfolios down like 15%, maybe even pushing 20% here on some tickers. And that certainly doesn't feel good, right? That certainly kind of feels like a little bit of a gut punch, and definitely not something that I want to allow to influence my decision making. So it's okay to acknowledge that, we're stressed. It's okay to acknowledge that, hey, this is not necessarily the easiest of conditions, but it's not okay to allow those variables to influence our decisions and to force us into taking trades or taking on risks that don't actually help us make any money or push us into a direction where we can expect to be profitable. So, obviously very excited to be trading with you all here today. Very grateful that I have this opportunity to be able to sit and watch and play the markets. Ultimately, right, this is my favorite thing in the absolute world. And these high volatility conditions, right, certainly create scenarios where we can create asymmetric upside for ourselves. But those things will only happen, right, if we focus on controlling basically our expectations, right, controlling our position sizing, controlling our risk management, right, controlling our greed, and controlling sort of the general anxieties that the market wants to kind of create for us. In these high volatility environments, those anxieties get absolutely multiplied, right? They become more significant, they become punchier, they become more aggressive, And so we have to understand that that is going to be kind of our hidden bias here today. And we want to make sure that we're making decisions that are proactive, not reactive, so that we can effectively overcome those pain points and trade with a clear, cool, calm, and collected mind. Like I said, woke up a little bit stressed out here this AM, and yeah, for whatever reason, feeling just like a little bit tight and tense. And so wanting to make sure, right, that I am countering that here today by forcing myself to slow down and to be deliberate, right, and specific. So not to say that I'm on tilt, not to say that I'm annoyed, not to say any of those things. I have very few reasons here to be disappointed with my trading or, how the market has been treating me here over the last little bit. But I can understand that my hidden bias here today is going to be to look for relief in my P&L. And I want to make sure that I'm not putting myself in a situation where my ego is now attached to my performance. So acknowledging that that's going to be kind of my hidden bias here today makes it easier for me to make a plan on how I'm going to avoid that sensation. And then hopefully, right, can kind of go from there and put together a really strong technical trading day. I want to emphasize that technical element, right? If I know that my bias here today is to find relief in a positive P&L day, that might make it very challenging to accept a loss. So I'm not focusing, right, on today making money. I'm focusing on being the most technically proficient trader I can be, because when I focus on that, technical excellence, then the second consequence, right, or the second order consequence of that trading is for me to be profitable. So I'm not optimizing for P&L here first. I'm optimizing on following my rules, trusting my plan, following my structures, and then allowing the numbers to kind of take care of themselves. Yesterday, right, we were the beneficiaries of a very strong numbers game. Today, I'm looking for a same kind of outcome, right, without hopefully starting the day off with a losing trade. So with that being said, team, let's start mapping things out here a little bit. Let's figure out what we want to do here this AM. And yeah, let's put ourselves in a situation where we can take advantage of whatever volatility is in play here today. We got wholesale inventories here at 10, fine. We got some Fed speak here at 11. And then we've got Fed minutes here this afternoon at 2 p.m. Nothing too crazy. We've got the bond auction, which I think will be a very, very interesting event here today. And then crude oil inventories at 10:30. So that could create an environment where, yeah, the maybe price action is a little bit muted, and we can go from there. Yeah, so we'll talk about that, Misa, as we're breaking down here. When we get a setup trigger and we know our stop loss location, I'll walk you through how to find that kind of entry sweet spot timing. So yeah, if I don't mention it, please remind me when we've got a trade boxed in. All right, so what's the count here on ES? Let's start there. Yeah, it's kind of been a little bit all over the place. We have seen a decent amount of kind of range here pre-market, right? Like almost 4% of range, 3.5% of range here intraday between the daily highs and lows. And we're still kind of consolidating right inside Monday's candle, right? A little bit of a fake out there yesterday, and then now not quite able to make lower lows. We do break down through that like 480.30 area. I think things could get pretty ugly here pretty quick. So we'll see if that ends up being a bit of a scenario, but certainly an expectation of a decent amount of volatility here today. So I'm going to call this a 2 out of 3 here to the downside without volume. The difference between that and a 1.3 is effectively just this, right? It does still give us that flexibility to trade price action here in both directions. But after yesterday's fake out, I am going to have a little bit more of like a bearish leaning bias than a bullish leaning bias. And we'll see if that ends up actually being justified. To the downside here, right, we're going to be targeting a move towards 480.80. Insane. Okay. And then to the upside here, right, we're going to push up towards sort of like that 50-70 handle and then beyond. And then yesterday's high, right, 5,300. So, I mean, it's not going to move that much. Or I'd be surprised if I get that amount of follow through here intraday. So I can go kind of like maybe 150-ish. And again, right, if we do exceed those levels and I get a tremendous amount to follow through, I can always add more levels later on. But if we do get that type of, we do get that type of follow through here early doors, it's going to be very challenging for me to trust I'm going to get sustained breakouts when I've already had like 150 points worth of follow through. Does that make sense? All right, great. Okay, NQ. If it loads. All right, so what's the count here on NQ? Let's start there. Yeah, I'm going to call this an inside bar, I think. I don't believe we made a higher high there yesterday. Right, so we're like 1 point maybe under under Monday's higher high. So I'm going to call this an inside bar, a formal day of consolidation. So again, right, I'm looking for a consolidation breakout here this morning and for a consistent narrative to return back into markets. It's not a big deal, right? If they want to consolidate here off of these lows, and if we are going to get that bullish bounce scenario, I imagine that probably would be what has to occur before we do get that nice and smooth follow through, right? So from my perspective, I think at this point, because we haven't broken out aggressively and we haven't gotten that kind of like immediate relief bounce, it might take a little bit of time, right, before we go. So it's an inside bar, right, because Tuesday's high of day and Tuesday's low of day were both less than Monday's low of day and Monday's high of day. So we are completely inside, or we weren't able to make either a higher high or a lower low relative to the previous bar. So I'm going to call this starting point here to the upside like 17.4. And we got 18.4, or sorry, 17.5, 17.6, 17.7. Cool. And then to the downside here, right, targeting 16.7. That's crazy moves. All right, sweet. Crude, how do we feel? What's the count? Yeah, 3 for 3 here to the downside with 10:30 data, right? And so again, I don't have a bullish scenario here. We're continuing to see some of that aggressive kind of selling, right? Maybe one thing we do have to be a bit worried about here are just the prop firm limits. So this is approximately 7% here. Call it 55.40, right, would be our limit down. And then 2% up from there. I actually nailed that with my my eyeball, and we'll call that a prop firm limit. So can't exceed, we'll say, this red line, right? And then yeah, markets will halt. Whoops. And markets will halt right on a breakdown here under the yellow. Levels wise, right? I mean, we're looking at most 56, 55, so we'll call it 57. They don't really have a very tradable range here. So, right, that would mean that I effectively can only look for like fake out scenarios, right? Or if I'm going to be trading crude, the fake out scenario here, failed, move to the upside, and then break down towards 57 is going to be really my only like realistic chance here at an appropriate risk reward ratio setup. So crude today with the 1030 data, with the sort of enthusiasm it's showing here pre-market, unfortunately might be kind of putting itself out of range for me here today, or at least not putting itself on like the top of the watch list where it should be a huge priority for me this morning. Okay. Apple, we're going to call this a 1 for 3 to the downside, but looks like an outside day. Effectively like a bearish engulfing candle, right? A couple ways that we can invalidate price action, right? You invalidate it by showing bigger volume or by holding under lower lows. So in this case, right, we've held down under lower lows. So if these bulls were actually strong, right, why didn't they defend 175? They let it crack, they let it break down. They let it break down here with the strong candle shape. I have very little evidence to think that, hey, bulls are immediately in control here. Okay, Tesla inside bar. So again, continues to consolidate here inside this range. I don't know, there's like a little sneaky part of me that wants to do a little bit of an earnings punt here on Tesla. I don't know if I have the courage to do it. Might be better just put money on black and roulette. But yeah, that would be something to maybe consider here as we get up closer to that event. Microsoft here. We're going to call this a 2 out of 3 to the downside without volume. A little baby gap down, right? A 30-cent gap down. So, okay, technically selling pressure. Higher high, higher low would need to break down here under 344. Okay, Amazon, 1 for 3 here. Higher high, higher low. Looks like it might just be a day of consolidation effectively between that Monday range and Tuesday range. Okay. AMD didn't quite hold under, right? Monday's low of day, so a little bit of a fake out lower. Still a lower low, lower high. Pretty good volume relative to the other tickers that we've seen here so far today, but that doesn't change anything. Still a 1 for 3 here to the downside. So strong red candle, decreasing volume, right? Gap up. So only one of those things is telling me that we've got bearish control, which is the color of the candle. And we'd like to see those narratives sink back up and become consistent prior to being aggressive. Okay, NVIDIA, again, 1 for 3 here. If we're seeing a lot of 1 for 3s, right, or a lot of formal consolidations, does that kind of make sense with the inside bar narrative we have on NQ, or does that tell us a different narrative or a different story than what we've seen here so far? Yeah, right. It makes sense. It's a story that is totally reasonable. So we're looking for a consistent narrative here across the board until we get that consistency. Probably expecting it to be a call it like hair pulling type price action, right? Maybe temperamental bipolar would be more suited to an episode of Murray versus being a respectable career. So maybe we need to be a little bit patient here today and just not put ourselves in a situation to force anything. It's already been a really strong start here to the trading week. I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm like compromising that ability, especially with just kind of like that extra little pressure here today. Obviously, doesn't mean that I'm not going to place any trades. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do any of those things. But I'm just going to be very deliberate with my decisions so I don't finish the day with any regret. Okay, Meta, right? 2 out of 3 here to the downside without volume and looking for that continuation narrative. Netflix, same thing. 2 out of 3 here to the downside without volume. So pretty much formal consolidation there across the board, pretty much everywhere yesterday. And then Google, good old inside breezy. All right, and then VIX hanging out 52.31. So rough calculation, right, to determine the implied daily volatility. 52 divided by 16. So approximately a implied daily range here of 3.25%. If we then go back to sort of what we've seen here on an index level, we're within striking distance of that already having occurred, right? We're at 3.7% here of daily range. Implied daily range here on the indexes was 3.25. So again, want to be a little bit careful here not to get hyper aggressive, chase like a 30% move. We don't need that here today to be profitable or to be successful traders. We need to just put ourselves in situations, right, where we're controlling the variables we can control. We're thinking about our position sizing, right? We're working backwards to find our ideal entry price, and we're being deliberate, not impulsive. The more specific I can be today, the calmer the session is going to feel. The less kind of like butterflies or anxiety or whatever variable you want to describe it as is going to influence my trading. So I'm very excited to see what the market wants to give me here today. But I'm also aware that I've got a few warts here this morning, right? And I mean warts from like a general market perspective, right? So it's kind of a tit for tat headline environment. We're already seeing a tremendous amount of volatility here in the pre-market. And we've got, Fed minutes here later this afternoon. So a lot of those things, right, are kind of maybe indicating to me that the market might want to move here in the second most obvious way today. And I want to make sure that I'm seeing a high conviction narrative before I commit any capital or mental capital to my trading here today. So I'm obviously excited. I want to keep stressing that, but this is a day where I'm going to have to work for a living, and I'm embracing that challenge here today. Any questions here, team? Anything that I missed or didn't go over? How are we feeling? Perfect, guys. So, if you have any questions, obviously don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to go just spend a few minutes here doing a little bit of breath work, just kind of get my mind right here for what should hopefully be an interesting trading day. We'll be back at it again here, team, in a couple minutes. And then, we'll jump back on here and set ourselves up for a strong session. So be back in a couple. Talk then. All right, guys, I'm back. So that's market open. Let's see how things kind of shape up here today. So again, right, I do have some flexibility here in both directions, but effectively I want to be a little bit cautious here today, right? Until I see some sort of clear indication of trending price action. Not sure if we're going to get that opportunity, right? Not sure where markets are going to shape up here today. Not quite sure if TradingView is ever going to actually load up all my scripts here. So we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, hopefully we do get ourselves a strong trading session. We put ourselves here in a good situation to be profitable. And yeah, hopefully the market wants to reward us here with a structured and disciplined process. Again, so far here this morning, right, very aggressive implied opening ranges. Massive, right? CL continues to be a little bit challenging as we're already pushing towards that 57 target, which is sort of our initial prop firm limit. So CL probably a little bit less tradable today than anything else. NQ and ES are going to be where I primarily put my energy and focus. If I get clean looks there, it should be a pretty high conviction day. That little ding you just heard was a 2-min CL mean reversion setup. I'm not going to take that. Like I said, right, my focus here with these mean reversions in the short term is still just only looking for those longer term time frames. That does make my life just a little bit easier. And yeah, helps me avoid basically some of the most challenging type of price action. And I certainly don't want to risk having a stop loss around that prop firm limit. That could just create some extra issues for myself here in the future. So let's see how the day shapes up your team. Yeah, like I said, right, optimistic about there being enough volatility for us to have a profitable opportunity here today. But I also want to make sure, right, that my narrative is consistent and clean before I'm willing to risk any of my mental or physical capital, right? These are types of markets, these high volatility markets really try to put you in situations where you're like, faced with an all or nothing decision, right? It likes to sucker you into thinking that that's the sort of right or reasonable thing to do. And so we want to make sure that we're countering that sort of objective here as much as possible and really just focusing on being deliberate, specific, right? Technicians and understanding that the more emphasis we put on the technical reasons behind the trade, the more we can start to answer the questions that start to give us anxiety once we're actually in a position or thinking about opening a trade. So the counter to stress, the counter to anxiety, the counter to whatever you want to call it inside your own trading day is by taking more accountability for your process and being proactive in how you answer questions that historically generate stress. So that's really what my objective is here today. Kind of like I said here at the start of today's session, I'm really working hard today to not judge myself on my P&L, right? It's kind of the relief that I want here, right? Is I want a good P&L day. I want a fantastic session. I want to continue compounding on what has been a really strong start to the week. But that is a bias, right? And not necessarily the best one to hold, because it could allow me, right, to skip rules. Oh, it's a high volatility environment. Let me just take this trade because it feels right, or let me make this decision, or let me oversize because I'm going to make life-changing money here today. All of that is like, honestly, a limiting belief. That would be probably the best way of me describing it, as it's you're thinking, hey, this is actually going to make me more money long-term, but it actually just costs you cash, costs you mental capital, and destroys your ability to compound here aggressively. I posted this in the Discord here yesterday, and it's something that I do fundamentally believe. It's a lot faster to make money trading when you can take 20 green trades in a row, or you have 20 green days without blowing up, or 20 days without blowing up, than it is to go 3 days of massive gains and then to blow up on day 4. So green days turn into green weeks, right? Green weeks turn into green months, and green months turn into FUs to your boss. It's one of my favorite sayings, one of my favorite beliefs as a trader. And so we have to understand, right, that actually trying to speed up our processes and forcing ourselves to try to make as much money as possible ultimately always slows us down and puts us in situations where we're ending up playing catch up, right? Instead of being able to compound here to the upside positively. So again, right, the emphasis that I have, control the variables I can control my expectations, put myself in situations where I'm being deliberate, I'm being specific, and I can effectively learn from the decisions that I'm making on a trade to trade basis. If I give up that power, or I give that power to the market, or I give that power to someone else, all I'm doing is setting myself up for failure, and I'm just going to elongate my learning curve so that I never accomplish what I'm looking for. So I'm, for me, right, like that's the most important thing, right? We have to be the tortoise here, not the hare. And yeah, it's one of those things, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so that really has to be the emphasis, right? We demand from ourselves. And when we hold ourselves to that standard and we don't expect things to be perfect right away, then we can actually start being traders instead of being gamblers. So fundamentally, right, trading is a numbers game. Fundamentally, trading is about managing a risk. And fundamentally, trading is about being deliberate in how you execute your A+ setups. Any deviation away from those techniques might be fun here in the short term, might create some sort of short-term relief, but it never leads to any sustained P&L progress. And I don't think it's the outcome that everyone wants inside this program. So far, right, 8 minutes into the session, and it's a pretty slow start, right? One candle up, one candle down, one candle up, one candle down. So no rush here. Hey, good morning, Rusty. Okay, so ES breaking out here. NQ, maybe. I don't think we're going to get the volume on NQ. ES, we are. So we're going to put an emphasis here now towards ES. So immediately, right, I know that we're going to have to use the aggressive entry technique because we've made a higher high above my confirmation candle prior to the pullback. I'm going to want my stop loss, right, to be the low of whatever this candle is once it kind of starts to settle down. And my profit target there is going to be that red line. So stop loss, right, low of my entry candle, or what would potentially be my entry candle, which is 50.23. Someone was asking me, right, what's 4 points on ES with a mini? What's 10 points on NQ with a mini? Well, 4 points then, right, is 50.23 plus 4. So if I want to be sizing my positions to be within 4 points of risk, I'm not setting it at that yellow line, right? I'm setting it at 4 points above whatever my stop loss is. So in this case, right, it's 50.27. So then that 50.27 would now be my entry target, and I would not be able to take any trades with a mini above that price. So it's find your stop loss, box in your trades, and then add, right, your position sizing filter from your stop loss low. Does that make sense? Missa, does that make sense? That one's for you. Well, now, no. Now I'm not looking at anything. Right? It's broken out too aggressively there on the 3 min. We don't have confirmation there on the 5. So I just can't get a reasonable amount of risk here to justify taking this trade. Upon breaking out right above our confirmation high, it never gave me a pullback to even within 5 points, right, of that yellow or of that red line. What a rip. All right, so NQ, right, setting up here as well. So the way we want to think about it, guys, right, with our trading is we always want to work backwards to our entry price once we've identified our profit target and our stop loss. That's why I love using that Fibonacci tool, because I'm drawing out my trades from my profit target to my stop loss level. So before I'm even thinking about an entry price, I'm defining the sort of parameters around my trading plan, and then I can make a good decision. Now, right here on this 3-minute time frame, I'd be looking for now on a pullback entry technique. And although I'd love to click on an entry here above that under that 422.50, can't stomach that amount of risk, right? That's far too much. So I would need to go within 25 points, right, of that 17,340, we'll call it, right? And that would be my potential entry zone. So 340, right, plus 25 would be like 65. So my entry, right, or my entry target would effectively be on a retest of the opening range high, right? So this might be an appropriate risk-reward ratio, but I can't justify the risk of that trade. So I need to find a deeper pullback. When I'm adjusting for the risk that I take in a trade, I never want to push my stop loss price up into a spot where I can get invalidated without being wrong. If I can't get a trade on the pullback that I want, tough shit, right? Shit out of luck. It happens. I'm not going to get an entry on every single setup trigger that I get. But if I start to push my stop loss up to arbitrarily just create that $500 worth of risk, or to create that 25-point buffer, all I'm going to do is set myself to get faked out on what effectively was an impulsive feeling. Yeah, if this thing pulls back, I'm buying myself a lot of time to be able to make this decision. And I can judge, right, hey, is this pullback strong? Is this behaving the way that I expect? If we've pulled back 150 points since my breakout candle, do I necessarily need to maintain that confidence, right, that my idea is still correct, or that it hasn't been potentially invalidated? I don't have to rush here, right? I can be deliberate. I can be focused. I can be specific. And ultimately, right, those variables are what's going to make me money, not chasing that quick short-term dopamine hit so I get some action on a big candle bar. Clear? Okay, so we're within striking distance here, right? And this would be a one contract play, guys. And so now we're looking to judge this reaction, right? Do we find support here off of this opening range? It's a pretty aggressive inside bar. Well, I'm watching the speed of which this price action happens, right? So Misa, right, what I'm doing here is I'm boxing in this trade. So I'm identifying my stop loss location, which is the low of my confirmation candle, right? And finding my profit target, which in this context here is 17,689. And then my position sizing, right, is 10 points above my red line, right? Or 10 points above my stop loss, or 4 points above on ES. So I have to find my stop loss price first. And then my entry zone based on that position sizing, right, is 4 points 10 points, 25 points, whatever it might be above that range. So far here, no entry, right? We made a good decision here to not chase after this, right? And Nautilus was asking, right? How do I know that this thing is going to go? Well, this is where we think about that elevator downstairs up, right? So if bulls are strong, right, it should be like price action is, grinding its teeth as it's pulling back towards our entry zone. If that move here is occurring aggressively or happening very quickly, then I'm not exactly seeing any indication that my thesis is being defended by the level of enthusiasm that I saw here earlier. So if I don't see that enthusiasm, it's easy to sit and kind of watch, right, and wait. And then it's just contextual clues, right? If it's a really strong breakout, does a really strong breakout and a 160 point pullback tell the same story? No, I would say that those are differing narratives, right? Like if price action was strong, it wouldn't pull back such an aggressive sized move, right? If these bulls were actually incredibly powerful, right, they wouldn't give back all their gains in 30 seconds. Very aggressive sell off there. So it's context, right? And it's context based on how we saw the previous candle move and sort of the general size of the range. So now, right, I have a possible opportunity here to look for an aggressive entry here on a 5-min basically ORB fake out setup, right? And so I know that my stop loss needs to be 1714. So my entry price, right, is going to be 25 points, right? 714 minus 25. So anywhere then above that price will be an acceptable entry target. So again, right, I don't think it's going to be super easy for me to get that pullback or to trust that pullback here this morning. But it would be off of that range. Hey, congratulations, Jeremy. Fantastic work. Go enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, so again, right, starting to watch here for a short. Stop loss 414. And so this blue line, right, is the point where I'm risking $500. So now, right, my way to gamify my risk management is to get a better entry than that blue line. Every tick, every cent, every move I get that's better than that, I reduce the size of my average loss and I increase the size of my average win. Right? I increase my margin of error. I increase my probability of being green. So here's our first attempt here at a test. And it didn't behave like with any respect, right? It absolutely just gobbled up all of those levels or all of that price action there. The move here higher, right, was not indicating that there's any level of enthusiasm here. And so again, right, an obvious reason to avoid taking that trade. Yeah, Mike, we spent the first part of the morning, right, talking about how today is going to be one of those days that's really going to try to trick you into being greedy and into chasing. And we've seen scenarios here in both directions where that has effectively failed. So pretty challenging start here. But Misa, did my explanation make sense? If you go into the Discord, right, there should be a video in the trading docs called Finding Your Formula for Success. That video will also break down that explanation in like 15-20 minutes. So it's always, right, find your stop loss price first. Where's the point where my idea gets invalidated? So for me, right, that's low of my confirmation candle or low of my entry candle if I'm bullish, or high of my confirmation candle or high of my entry candle if I'm bearish. So that's the point where I'm wrong, right? From there, I need to get to the point where my entry is appropriate. So if my point where I'm wrong is, say, 50-70, right? Let's say that this is my stop loss, and my job is I only want to lose $500 here on this trade if I'm wrong. That's my max loss number. I have two ways, I call it three ways, that I can manage my risk, right? Okay, I can wait for a deep pullback until price action is within $500 of stopping me out there of that 50, 70, 150, right? Which with on one contract on ES would be 10 points. So that would initially be it. If I wanted to go more contracts, say I wanted to go 2 contracts, right? But now I got to go within 5 points of 71.50. If I wanted to go 3 contracts, right? I have to go even closer and closer and closer. So that's variant 1, right? And then variant 2, you trade micros instead of minis, so you can get a larger range. And then variant number 3, right, is find that point where you're risking $500 and get an entry that's significantly better than that point. But it all starts with identifying your stop loss location first and working backwards to your entry price. It is an entry price stop loss. It's profit target, stop loss, entry price in that order. And when you think about it that way, it'll be very obvious over what your $500 risk spot is, or whatever your max daily or max trade loss is. If you're unclear on how I set my stop loss, then I would recommend going through the material there in the Discord. For me, right, the stop loss is the low or high of my confirmation candle or the low or high of my entry candle. And so if you're not sure what confirmation is or what those narratives are, I would please recommend going through the foundational elements of the course, as that will explain those concepts to you so that you can make your process consistent. Yeah, pretty crazy start to the session here so far. No trades placed. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, my trading view was pretty slow there for a while this morning too. So we've got, wholesale inventories here at 10, crude oil inventories here at 10:30, and then Fed minutes here at 2. Oh man, I'm glad I'm not looking at those comments. I would lose my mental capital with that shit. Hey, my platform isn't working the way that I want. Let me take on a tremendous amount of risk and hope it works. Get the fuck out of here. Honestly, I see this. Honestly, the thing that probably drives me the craziest. And this is at risk of having a Michael tangent here, but just people don't treat trading like they're a professional. They just treat it like it's a day at the casino. It's like, man, it's like it's honestly never been easier to win. You just you just control those variables. Yeah, 100%. Kind of a frustrating start to the morning here a little bit. Big moves, really big moves, but no executionable setups here. And again, team, right? If I don't place a further trade here this week, still going to be an epic trading week, right? So I don't have to force anything. I don't have to give anything away. I don't have to do anything stupid. My portfolio is sitting, or my day trading portfolio, right, is sitting at all-time highs, right? And the market is sold off far from all-time highs, right? So we're in a really good position here to be disciplined, to be patient, to wait out, right, this indecision, this high volume whipsaw. More money gets lost in high volatility periods than gets made, right? More people will blow up their accounts than become millionaires trading this price action. Yeah, pushing that, yeah. Probably like 28, 29% from the highs. Huge move. And it's like we've had Tom, right, guiding us the whole way here and giving us good directions on how to execute. So for now, right, still have to be pretty patient and can't think, hey, just because I've had a nice run of form here, that all of a sudden I've got some like world class intuition over what the market is going to do next. All I know is that when I follow the rules of my system, play the game that I know how to play, I make money. Oh, TomTom was like one of those original GPS devices that you could get before it was on your phone. Maybe dated myself there a little bit. Oh, I mean, I haven't used one in a decade either, but I don't know, for some reason I associated that with GPS. Giving me directions on what to do. Okay, so another opportunity here, right, for an upside breakout. Need to see increasing outlier volume. Now you've outdated me there, Steven. Okay, so again, right, back to watching NQ here to the upside. We're looking for a high vol breakout here above high a day. Finish off our opening range breakout continuation. We need to see price action, right, to get valid confirmation to hold above effectively what is this blue line on increasing outlier volume. And then my stop loss will either be 17, say 437, or it's going to be the the low of the next candle. Again, right, 40 seconds to go. I already know where my stop loss is going to be. I already know where my profit target is going to be. So it'll be easy for me to work backwards to find my appropriate entry price or appropriate entry zone. The difference, right, between my green line here and my red line, call it 60 points, right? It's 59 points. But let's call it, right, 60 points. So I know that I have to get a pullback, right, a little bit more than halfway down this to be within that sort of 25-point range. So I'd be looking at like a 65 or better entry, right, something along those lines. So maybe the easiest way for me to be able to trade this would be then with the aggressive entry technique. Although that now might be kaputs as well. So entry target on this, right, would be approximately here. And now we're looking at the aggressive, so that's changing. Okay, so stop loss 538.25 would be the stop loss. Okay, so again, right, you're looking at a 63 or better entry. Now it's already pulling back lower, so it might not give it to me. All right, so now stop loss would have to be 23. So that means 23 plus 25 is 48. All right, and so I would need an entry around that price. And it's no longer behaving, right, as if this is a strong breakout trade. Kind of the opposite, right, of this. Actually, not opposite. Same kind of reaction like we got there on this. So again, right, just buying myself time to make my decisions, being specific with how I'm looking or working backwards to my entry price. And I'm not relying on a feeling, right? My feelings lie to me. I'm not waiting for it to feel right. I'm waiting for it to behave the way that I expect. And the more that I can be specific in how I define that plan, the easier it is, right, to avoid FOMO and those negative sensations because things are binary, right? Either it gives me the move that I'm expecting or it doesn't. And so now, right, when I'm avoiding making decisions with that foundation of like FOMO, it is a lot easier to sit there and be structured and be disciplined and to wait for my perfect setup. Because why would I take something that I don't have data on or I don't have confidence that is actually going to make me money? I'm not so desperate to be green that I'm willing to be irrational in my pursuit of it. Like, I think that there's a transition for traders, like a mindset shift transition for traders. And it's effectively when you decide that you're going to stop playing games where you don't have an edge, right? So maybe that means you stop playing the slot machines, right? Like, why would I want to do something where my best expectation is losing money, right? Why would I want to take a trade where my best expectation is that I get a random data point that I can't learn from? That's like a best case scenario, right? I can only take decisions. I should only be taking trades when I've expected positive value on that outcome. And everything else, right? It's not appealing. Everything else looks like shit. Everything else is a terrible compromise that I'd be unwilling to chase, right? Why would I want to play a game where I'm expected to lose? What's the fun in that? Like at some point, right, we have to decide that I'm not going to play games that I can't win, right? What's the point? Why am I so committed to wasting my own time, right? And I would say that none of us, and I will say this like with my chest puffed out, that none of us have any significant amount of evidence that trading our impulses actually makes us any money long term. Might make you some short term money. You might get a couple of good wins here or there. But then when you lose, you're going to lose everything, right? Chasing that same feeling. So why would I want to do that to myself? Why would I want to play that game? That sounds miserable, right? I think what's confusing about trading is that sometimes it feels as if the pain of discipline is worse than the pain of regret, right? It feels as if being disciplined in the moment, sitting on hands, being patient is more difficult than it is to lose money, right? It feels like a bigger ask. It feels like a more personal result. So if you start to believe that, you got to really rewire your dopamine because you're looking at things the wrong way. Okay, so maybe setting up here for some 10-min rejections. We have not missed anything here yet, right? Objectively, not missed any opportunities to have made money here yet. So again, right, I've got every reason to be calm, to be patient, to be deliberate. I'm extremely grateful that I get to be yeah, all good. So if you go into your fib, open up the settings, and then you go style, and you go to labels. You can choose where you want the label to be set. I'll have it right. You can have it set as left, center, whatever. So that's how I do it. Okay, so based on this current price action here with this 10-min time frame, where am I placing my stop loss? Yeah, high of day, right? Which is high of our confirmation candle. All right, so stop loss would be, we'll call it 17,600. All right, so if it's 17,600 and I know I want to be risking 500 bucks and NQ moves $20 a point, I want to be 25 points away, right, as my initial entry price. So now I can ask myself, right, what's the probability of that actually being a high conviction entry? Probably a little bit limited, right? If I need to see 110 points of pullback, prior to getting into my entry zone, there's a lot of time there, right, for the personality of this name to effectively change. And we've already seen that happen here multiple times, right? Big breakdown, massive reversal, high volume, massive reversal, right? So we've seen that move change its personality multiple times in those large ranges. And so contextually now, right, I need to see a slightly different set of behaviors as I pull back, right, that next now 130 points, right, towards my entry zone. We talk about often, right, how trading is half art, half science, right? The science element, okay, manage where's my stop loss price, right? Where's my entry price where I'm risking $500? The art element of it, right? Or I should say continue the science. Where's my risk reward ratio, right? Where's my setup trigger? Where's my wherever? The art of it, right, is taking the information that we see from a daily basis and using that context to help us improve the quality of our executions. So right now, right, we've seen that price action has effectively maintained a very indecisive narrative here after a few initial breakouts higher. So if I know that I've mostly seen indecision here so far, then I want to add that read, right, or that analysis here of the market into my entry timing, right? If I'm seeing indecisive price action, I'm seeing a whipsaw, I'm seeing things bounce around like crazy, that doesn't exactly reward aggressive entry timing, right? Or trying to like top tick something. Right? So I'm using the science of my setup trigger, right? I'm using the science of my consistent process to work backwards to the same variables here over and over and over again. But each time it pulls back into that entry price, or each time it pulls back into my appropriate entry zone, it's going to tell me a slightly different story. And so I have to be able to use the information I've learned here intraday to be able to interpret if that story is bullshit or not, right? And then once I've found that the story is actually telling me something that I believe, now we get back to that science element, right? Now I need my position sizing to make sense. Now I need my stop loss location to make sense. Now I need to make sure that my ability to close as my P&L is increasing makes sense, right? Does my profit target make sense relative to the moves we've seen here so far today? And so I want to be very discerning effectively in how I filter out or how I filter my trades and maintain as much of an objective analysis here as I can. So yeah, it's been a frustrating start here to the session because the ranges are so big and these candles are so aggressive that the probability of me getting pullbacks into my entry zones and for those pullbacks to be the right quality, it's not super high conviction here as of yet, right? We might have to wait for a slightly more mature market, which is fine. I've got no problems waiting. And so we're constantly, right, adding context-based clues to our systematic process to improve the quality of our execution. And the more that I focus, right, on those clues of price action, on the technical behavior, right, of PA, then the easier it is for me to put aside those intrusive, impulsive thoughts that love to cost me money. Right? So on a day like today, this is why I'm putting so much emphasis into these things, because I'm making the pattern crystal clear in my head that it's in a binary way. It has not accomplished any of the rules that I need to be able to trade this position. So I am using that like, I don't know, strict approach to effectively manage my FOMO and anxiety and my stress that I might experience, right? So I am controlling my reaction to price action. I'm not chasing it, right, to create exciting results. Yeah, 100%, Vinny. I would 100% believe or agree with that statement. Boring trading isn't fun because you're repeating the same shit over and over again, right? You're doing the same pattern of behaviors over and over and over again. So that repetition is boring. Chasing a big win, betting on a horse is more fun than sitting there and waiting for your perfect pitch. And so it kind of goes back to where we talked about how the vast majority of traders are actually gamblers. That's how they behave, right? They allow the market to dictate their mood, to dictate their reactions, instead of boxing in the market and forcing it to pay you out with your system. Right? We're trying to corner our best setups. We're not trying to chase them all around the street. Yeah, 100%, Patrick. I agree. I'll take a walk. I'll take a hit by pitch. That's what it takes. Who can remember what our second most profitable position is? Who remembers? Yeah, right. Our second most profitable position is cash. Now, okay, in this inflationary environment, maybe we can make an argument that that isn't the case. But avoiding your obvious mistakes is how you stay profitable as a trader, right? And yeah, so far, one candle up, one candle down, one candle up, one candle down. So 15 min time frame, right? This can maybe be where our opportunity lies. Again, 600, right? Approximately is our stop loss. You need an entry, right? 75 or better. And if we get so close to that high, who's to say we don't want to fake out and break down? We've kind of seen that thesis here on multiple time frames now, right? It's like a fake out sell off, fake out sell off. Again, right? I'm using that contextual information of how price action has behaved here so far to basically tame my impulsive behaviors, right? Because yes, we're 50 minutes here into the trading day. My execution screen has gone blank, right? It's gone dark because I haven't touched the mouse. And so there's an opportunity, right, to feel frustrated with that because the range of some of these moves has been tremendous. But I've not gotten my A plus, right, set up. I've not gotten an opportunity where my risk reward and position sizing syncs up. And I've not seen anything that gave me a half-baked move that actually gave me the follow-through that I would have wanted towards my final profit target. So again, if I'm looking at price action objectively, every indication here I'm being told is that I've done a good job effectively waiting out subpar conditions or conditions that don't match my trading style. And that's fine, right? Not every day is going to be a trading day. And if we could just honestly, like, I think if you think about your own personal trading, if you could have just found a way to have not placed a trade on your biggest blow up sessions, like, I bet you'd be a lot more profitable, right? And your biggest blow up sessions don't happen when you lose on an A plus setup. They lose when you turn an A plus setup into a B minus or a C plus or a D minus setup, and then it gets out of control, right? Look, if you're a trader who blows up your personal portfolio by taking a million paper cuts in a row, I'll set you up like with a trust fund or something like that, right? But that it's literally going to be impossible. Because if you just follow your basic structure, you follow your basic rules, you follow that risk reward ratio, we need to be correct 20% of the time to be profitable. And if you have 100 losing trades in a row, I'm setting up a trust fund and asking you for the lottery ticket numbers because you are an outlier among outliers. So maybe here, right, we have a low vol pullback setup. Right, here's your breakout, consistently lower volume since the breakout candle, and then a high volume reversal there off of the opening range. Now, this would be a slightly more rare setup version, right? But that low vol pullback certainly makes some sense here potentially. 67 to 503. Meh. Maybe on the longer time frame. And did a good job here avoiding CL. And look, I want to be transparent here, guys, right? Over the reality of trading, right? No one, and I mean absolutely no one, wins every single day or has a edge every single day, right? No trader does. Right? So we can't expect ourselves to hit out of the park every single session. We can expect ourselves just to be disciplined and structured and to play the game. But sometimes the best play is to not take on any risk. And I would say we're definitely in that kind of position here, right? Look, if you see, they are 100%. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever read the Market Wizards series. But the Market Wizard series is like one of my favorite set of books about traders. And that not necessarily because you learn a lot technically, right? I wouldn't say it's necessarily in that context, but you get a lot of ideas over what's possible, right? Playing this game. And that gets your brain thinking relative to your own setup triggers. So that's really cool, right? But when you study those guys and you study I shouldn't say just guys, but you study all those traders, you study all of the people who are big winners, the ones that consistently make the most money have honestly like way worse win rates than you expect. I remember one guy, I can't remember what his name was, but he averaged something like 1,000% a year for 7 years in a row with a 30% win rate. Right? So yeah, I don't really have too many complaints. Like my win rate this year is a little bit less than what it was this time last year, but my P&L is about 2 times greater than what it was this time last year. All right, so it's not to say I'm going to have a 5% win rate. That's not the case. But I don't win because I have the best strategy, right? I win because I'm a better risk manager than 99% of retail traders, right? That's ultimately what my edge is. My edge is my ability to lose small and to basically not bleed out from paper cuts. You're saying Romeo didn't invent turtle soup or whatever he's calling it? Fucking scammers. That shit drives me crazy. Yeah, so far, right, we would have been chopped out. So, objectively, right, it's not been a fun trading session here so far today, but we've done everything right, even if our P&L hasn't rewarded us here yet. And we still have a possible chance here for that rejection thesis on the 15. Right, we haven't invalidated our confirmation candle. It's just an inside bar on decreasing volume. So it is a little bit of an indication there of some weak bulls. So our trade, right, would be set up like this. So 601 stop loss, right, means 76 or better would be my entry price. And again, right, I've got a lot of time to wait for this. It's almost 100 points. So as this pulls back into my zone, I'm not just going to like impulsively click my button here and chase that entry. The market conditions are not indicating that that's going to reward me. I'm going to want to see price action get stuck, or I'm going to want to have to see a fake out above, right? Because those are the things that we've seen happen here so far today. So this is the science, right? And now as we're watching price here pull back closer and closer towards our entry zone, we have to use the context-based clues, right? And the information that we've gathered here by sitting for, 63 minutes, get our perfect entry and our perfect execution. Okay, time to unlock the computer. And it'd be a 601 stop loss. And we still need like 50 points of pullback, right? Just to touch on some comments here in the Discord, right? For me, the thing that you want to look out for when you're looking at people who are trading is, do they bleed, right? Like, do they also suffer the markets here sometimes? Because those gurus, some of those YouTube streamers who have like the huge affiliate payouts, the reason why they're getting $500,000 a month in affiliate payouts is because they're constantly bagging their traders, right? Their followers. You follow their trades and you lose and you buy another affiliate payout, and you keep repeating that process over and over and over again. And they lie to you that they're making money, which they are from their affiliates, but their trades are sending people into like a constantly repeating loop of just buying new resets and new accounts and all that bullshit. So it's just fugazi, right? And yeah, because you've got a Lambo in your office, you must be the world's best trader. No, man, you're just a bullshitter. I do have to be honest. Every time I see someone on social media, there's always like some darkness to them. Like there was a guy last year who ran a Discord room who ended up killing someone. I don't know if you guys remember that. He like dumped the body in some Florida marsh, and he was like tweeting pictures of him walking the hike. Like, Jesus. Millionaire day trader killing people over a broken lawnmower. Fucking absurd. Hey, if it's paid off in cash, Mike, I'd be impressed. There was another guy, right, that was running a Discord calling himself a millionaire day trader. And he ended up getting fired from his job as a teacher at the school he was working at because he was texting underage girls to come do homework at his house. But yeah, millionaire day trader. Fucking pathetic. There was another guy. I don't know why I'm ranting about this here this morning, but there's another guy. He's on big on Twitter Spaces. It recently came out that he had been I don't know how to put this politely. He got arrested for effectively taking his dog out on a date. Not really sure how else to describe that in a safe for work environment. This was his criminal background. What the fuck? See, I don't normally complain or talk about competition. Man, this shit drives me crazy. No. I'm honestly too boring to be a serial killer. Well, look, I worked with psychos when I was working institutionally too. I've got some horrific stories of stuff that people did on the desk. Absolutely horrific. That's fantastic, Mike. Oh yeah, today was a Festivus day, right? Been the airing of grievances. You saying that for you, Brooke? Or are you asking about my spot? So right now, I'm still East Coast. I'm like kind of halfway between Montreal and Toronto. In a month, I'm gonna be West Coast, so Pacific time zone. It feels like a long way away right now. Yeah, CL's just kind of been tanking here. Yeah, hopefully it'd be nice. I'm scared to see what my sleep schedule turns into, but oh, I love Victoria. Victoria's beautiful. We have a member here who's from Victoria. Great spot. Yeah, I'm not quite gonna do 4:30 wake ups because market's gonna open what 6:30. So I'll probably do 5:30. So in my own personal life, right now I'm waking up at 6 anyway, most days. So it shouldn't be too tough of a change. Yeah, I think it'll be great. Comox is beautiful too. Some great mountain biking there. Oh yeah, that part of the world in the summer, Vinny, it's honestly the most gorgeous place ever. Somewhere warm. Brooke, somewhere warm is the idea. I want the opposite of what I have in Canada. Like yesterday it was snowing. Fuck me, I don't want to deal with the snow in April in some random city. When you're in the mountains, a little bit different. You go skiing, you go snowboarding. But yeah, it would be Florida or Texas. We'll see if that comes together. Hopefully, Trump will annex Canada before my visa goes through. Save me some money on legal fees. Okay, so maybe here, right, we could look at the aggressive technique for a breakdown. You're looking at what, 30-ish or better? All right, so watching here, right? Watching this reaction here very carefully, right? This general theme we've seen here across the board is just fake out after fake out. So base expectation that that's going to be the case here. So we're looking for price action to behave a little bit differently, right? Doesn't seem like it wants to. So again, right? It's not beautiful art here right now, but we're using the information we've basically seen the market give us here this morning, and then not gone stopped out, right, on what would have been a losing trade. So it's really easy, right, to see the times where breaking your rules would have made you money. Maybe not as easy to see the times where following a rule saved you money. And so it's important to, yeah, acknowledge that out loud, right? And remind ourselves. Yeah, it is. But if we look at the range we've had here since 940, we've kind of gotten that as a general consensus. It's been high volatility, right? Or big ranges, but small relative. Again, no entry here, right? That's clearly a failure. And have no reason to be aggressive. How's everyone feeling so far this morning? Hopefully my dark and somber mood didn't scare everyone away. Love that, Berks. Love that. That's the right attitude. Yeah, it feels good to be in control, right, Manjeet? Feels really good to be in control. And again, it's not that our ideas have not been correct here. The amount of range that we've gotten, would have been great to catch a 70-point move, 80-point move. But we had no expectation here of actually being able to profit off of that kind of volatility. Right? Or at the very least, it would have shaken us out right before it makes this move, which would have been very frustrating. It's my eyes are taking a little bit of time to adjust because these candles don't look like they're 200 points. They look smaller than that. It's a little bit deceptive here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Friday. Friday, we had a lot of like half-baked setups, but nothing that wanted to give us a position sizing entry. Kind of a repetition of that. Okay, so we have a possible chance here on the 3-min time frame. Time of day probably best indicates a mean reversion setup, right? Or a failed breakout. Right, so we're looking at low vol fake out, right? Bullish failure. So it's still part of the opening range here. Stop loss 345. You need an entry 320 or better. And it might not give it to me. So again, right, we can't trick ourselves into thinking that, hey, this is the price action to chase. This is the price action to rush. No reason to do that. P&L's been great so far this week, right? I don't need to do anything else. I'm up $3,500 in account. If I don't place another trade here, I'm going to outperform 99% of traders this week. So no pressure, right? No expectation to force anything. No reason to rush anything. If it's strong, it'll give me more than one chance to take a trade. And I haven't even seen a half-baked chance yet here to get into anything. So there's no FOMO, there's no nothing, right? Just following my rules, following my system, allowing my muscle memory to take over instead of defaulting to allowing my call it impulses or what I want price action to do or anything along those lines to dictate terms. Right? I'm the one who knocks. Again, you guys are this week for whatever reason triggering all my cliches. But I'm saying them out loud because I'm trying to remind myself too, right? I'm trying to keep myself grounded, trying to keep myself focused and sharp. Okay, so maybe, so 82, something like that. So 82.50 be our stop loss price. And again, right, we're looking for this reaction now inside this zone. And let's see if it gives us that oomph. So far, no. And just blast through again. Now we can look at the pullback technique here on the 5. And you're looking at a 70 entry. No, this would be a short here, Mark. This would be a short. Red line is my stop loss. The stop loss at high indicates a short. We're looking for this variant here of the opening range breakout. So we're looking for the bullish failure thesis. When we look at price action, 1 failed breakout, 2 failed breakouts, bullish failure. Nope, my limit price here will be set as 19,370. And then I'll click submit once price is giving me the correct reaction above that blue line. That's going to then behave effectively like a market order. And I'll get the best fill I possibly can up until that blue line price. But I don't ever do market orders here on my entries, just on my exits. So no longer can look for the pullback entry technique. that make sense, Rebecca? That makes sense? Perfect. There should be a couple like trade examples inside the Discord where I show you kind of how I do it on my screen and how I set everything up. Yeah, the meaning of the blue line, right, is I always want to work backwards to a specific entry price, right? So then it either hits 369.25 or it doesn't. I'm making it binary. And yeah, I'm giving you guys that blue line too, right? So you can get the same entry as me. Because if you're waiting for me to say that I'm in a position and then clicking submit, you're always going to get a worse fill, right? So the only way that you can actually effectively copy my strategy, right, trade for trade, is to use the same entry logic and technique as I do instead of waiting to hear that I'm in. And so this line, right now, it's been active for 5 minutes. So none of us have any reasons as to why we shouldn't be prepared on that trade, or any reasons as maybe why latency would be an issue or anything along those lines. We've got all the information we need for our trade, minutes, sometimes 30, sometimes 40, even hours, right, before a trade comes together. And yeah, if you're prepared and you've got everything set up and you got your order window ready to go, you're going to crush it. But in general, right, and this is just like a philosophical approach that I believe I have, but if your objective is to copy my trades and learn my strategy and to take the same plays that I do, you're no longer copying my trades if you're chasing after my entries. Right? Because my system is based on risk reward and position sizing. So if we start to change those variables, then the math around what makes that technique profitable no longer maths. Yeah, for me, it's the thing that I probably bitch about the most. If be told, if I'm being honest with myself. But yeah, really what my objective here with the stream and the way that I run this coaching program is to tell you what I'm doing before it happens so that we can get our questions answered before it's the moment of execution, and so that everyone has a clear and calm head, right? I think it's the only way that we can all get really good performance. And I think, right, that little nudge I give you guys, right, to think about your executions independently within some rules is why people in this team do so well trading. Right? It's why we see people have 10K weeks. It's why we see people have, 20K days. It's because they make it their own and they apply their strengths and personality to it. Oh yeah, it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. Because I'll be honest, my job would be a lot easier if I could just tell you my entries 5 minutes after they happened. It'd be a lot easier. Or if I gave you vague instructions. That wouldn't help you, right? Wouldn't make you any better. And when I was learning, it didn't make me any better doing that either, right? Yeah, above the blue line. Now, right now, I don't have any active setup triggers, so it's not going to be in play here, Mark. But my stop loss originally would have been that red line. My entry zone would have been above that blue line, and my profit target here would have been that white line. No, with the way that the day has consolidated here, we're not going to be getting any mean reversion looks. We'll need a really dramatic move at FOMC minutes to get that type of setup here today. We got to sell off 954. Big fake out under and reverse, and that'd be on the 3-minute. On the 10, it'd have to go even lower. It would have to be like 920-ish. Today's Fed minutes, you can find that information here inside Market Watch with their economic calendar. All Fed events start at 2. Any official Fed event starts at 2. But yeah, for now, I have no active setups. And I'm just kind of hanging out. Been a day of chop. Nothing interesting. It takes time, Mark, right? It definitely takes time. I say this all the time, but the hardest thing to do as a trader is those like first 20 days of transitioning from unprofitable to profitable trading habits. Because you literally have to rewire your like dopamine triggers in your head. And so each decision feels extremely uncomfortable until that happens. So no worries. Everyone has been in your exact same spot here, Mark. So it means you're on the right path. Yeah, but I have no confirmation here. Yeah, it's a big bounce. Spot on, Craig, but not a setup I can trade. Sounds good, Mark. Send me a message on Discord. I'll get you fired up here in the right direction. Yeah, your trial will be probably expiring there pretty soon. So let me know if you have any questions. Happy to kind of point you in the right direction. Yeah, send me a message, man. Send me a message. Send me a message, Mark, and I'll get you pointing in the right direction. So what do you guys think? One last full port YOLO to finish the day off strong? What do we think? All that ranting and raving just to break every single possible rule. Oh. Let's ride, Sam. Yeah, Monday was awesome. But yeah, today CL effectively untradeable. And I will say, kind of nice to get a nice win on a Monday. Start the week off with like that relief of pressure, right? You have a good day to start the week, effectively a week making trade. And now, right, you don't have to feel any pressure to make any money or to do anything crazy. Just sit on hands and be patient for my perfect A plus setup. We'll say maybe this is anecdotal, but today has felt like the first day where it's maybe a capitulation type behavior because it's just trapping people on both sides. So it's like finally getting the participants like exhausted. And then when they're out of the way, he'll be able to move again. Who knows? All right, so we have a chance here for outlier volume on ES. Maybe the same thing here on NQ. 50 seconds to go. Targeting high of day, which is 600, so 180 points. That's a lot of space. So 30 seconds. Let's see. All right, so still watching here. About the same. So effectively, right, looking for a bounce off of like the opening range. So blue line, right? 68, 43 plus 25, right? 68. So anywhere under that blue line is a good entry for a theoretical long. So now, right, if I'm looking at the opening range cheat sheet, I'm looking for the high vol breakout, right? Separation away from the opening range on increasing outlier volume. And we're targeting current high of day. So instead of targeting our 2R range, we're targeting high of day because we've seen price action get stuck there so far today. Make sense? My YouTubers, yeah, makes sense. All right, great. So yeah, now we needed an entry, right, to justify our position sizing to be under this blue line. All right, so we need to see a pullback into that price before we can look for an entry. So on the little inside bar, maybe we could set up here for the aggressive entry technique. Okay, so that's now going to be the case. So stop loss would be 425, makes it easy to do our math. So setting everything up here. 425, let's call it 425 on the dot. And we now need to see a gentle pullback here into that blue line to justify taking the trade. So there's our first attempt here to find support off of that range. Wasn't super convinced yet. Okay, now our stop loss would have to be lower. Now it might be fuck all. Let's see, 418, 416.75. Still just about that 44. Okay, so now stop loss has to be 416. Again, right, reset, look for it to give you that strong reaction here, right, of finding support in between that blue line and the red line. So far, it's effectively pretended as if there were no buyers inside that range, which is why I'm able to be patient here and not click submit. So again, now we're going back to the context clues, right? We've developed here so far in today's trading session. We've seen fake outs like crazy, right? We've seen all these moves fail in every which way direction. So base assumption, right, is that that's going to continue happening until we get that proven otherwise. We're doing our best here to define what that is. Yeah, we just still haven't seen that exact reaction. Again, right, I'm keeping my voice calm, right? I'm keeping my heart rate chill. I'm being binary, not emotional here. So I'm forcing myself to slow down and effectively breathe, right? Again, idea isn't dead. The gentle pullback is what I need. It's given us that elevator up, right? But it's not giving me the stairs down into that blue line, at least not yet. So that blue line, right, is definitely the key point here because I need to make sure that I'm staying within my max loss number. So although I could take an entry here at that 55 and still have an appropriate risk reward ratio to justify taking that trade, I'm going to be breaking my position sizing rules if I do that. So it would be fun to break my rules and to go be a cowboy, but it wouldn't be profitable. Okay, so still watching here, team. Okay, so watching closely here. Looking for a gentle pullback. All right, guys. So I am in average price 139. 139.50. Not a perfect entry, I would say. Took the stop. And just a fake out. Yeah, let's try this potentially again here. Hey, Valentine. Unfortunately, I'm not at Apex's FAQ section. I would recommend referencing that. All the information you're going to need regarding your payout or your payout stage is best answered by them. I have no control or ability to really impact their processes. Yeah, Mark, looking for a long, you can always tell, right? My stop loss is my red line. So if my stop loss is low, right, or it's below the current price, I'm looking for a long. If it's above, it's a short, right? Just as a general statement, team, right? Please make sure you understand the rules of whatever prop firm you're choosing to trade with before you place any trades. Okay, so I'd say at this point, right, the setup is now dead, so no active setup. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I think I have this as a short setup here. Failed breakout, bearish engulfing candle, bearish engulfing on volume. So it'd be a stop loss here of 408.75. So I'm already within my entry zone here, right? Within that 25 points. And I'm just looking for this correct reaction here for a downside flush. Yeah, this is some ruthless PA. Okay, we are getting a setup here again, potentially for a downside move. 65 to 88. That's right on the cusp. Okay, so again, right, looking now for the aggressive entry technique. Stop loss 390. So I need to be above 65, right, to go short. Just saw it, just missed it. Let's see if it pulls back again here. So again, right, this is a short. Stop loss 390, entry above 365, target 201. That should beat absolutely everything you need here, right, to be able to execute this trade successfully. This would be a one contract play. Again, watching closely here as we pull back towards that entry zone. Okay, still watching here, still watching. Okay, watching closely. 5 points, 10 points now. Back to 5. I didn't pull back just enough. Ruthless. Okay, back in business here. Again, now resetting here, aggressive entry technique. Okay, still within striking distance. Nice work, Samuel. Great entry. Okay, so again, watching here. All right, guys, I'm in short. Average price 372, 372. $372 on the dot. Sam, we're twins. Oh, fuck. And remember, right, red signifies short, so it's color coded here. And let's see if this thing can break down. But so far, so good. So far, so good. Bouncy again, though. So let's see if we can flush through 50. If it does, we're going to be in really good shape. Okay, there it goes, right? There it goes. So let's watch this position here, right? And focus on closing this out as our P&L is increasing. Yeah, so far so good here, team. So far so good. Okay, there's 900 bucks. A little bit further follow through. See if we can get that flush through 20 and then push down towards 300. Right on cue. And again, right, we want to make sure that we're focusing here on closing this trade here as our P&L is increasing, not panic closing on a pullback. So if you get to a point where you don't like the way this trade is moving and you want to protect your entry, just close your trade. Take the win for what it is. You're up $1,000, right? Come on, break down, break down. And I've just got my finger on the X button here, right? I'm just watching. Nice work, Samuel. Let's go. $1,200 is a fantastic day. Congratulations. Well worth dealing with bitchy Mike. All right, so watch this reaction here around 300, right? There it goes, guys. There it goes. That's $1,000 here on the day. So let's see if this thing's got some more legs left. Yeah, great trade, team. Great trade. Hopefully a few of you guys are still in this with me. All right, keep going, baby. Keep going. Come on, we're close. Next flush here, we're going to be in great shape. That's 1,800. Okay, keep going, keep going, keep going. We're close. All right, guys, I have closed that trade. I have closed that trade. Exit price. Why can't I find it? 279. 279. And that puts me on the day 1351.44. And so I'll be honest, the reason why I closed this trade is I started to kind of catch myself feeling a little bit greedy there. I think that's probably the right way of describing it, right? As I was watching that price action, right, break down through that 80 area, I started, it's almost like I was cheering for a horse, right? You know, I was like Kramer in the bookie's office trying to pay off my speeding tickets. Let's go, Jeremy. Let's go. $4,200. Fantastic work. Alfred, $500. Nice work. Jeff, 900. Good job, team. Really, really good job. So yeah, close that trade for me, right? As I felt, the greed kicking in here just a little bit. I think that's proven to be the right decision here so far. And awesome. Okay, lost 450-ish bucks right on my first trade. Made 1,900-ish bucks on my second. That's a great risk reward ratio. For those of you who are still in this position, you're in great shape, right? Same advice like I mentioned 5 minutes ago. If you're getting to that point where you feel like you need to protect your entry, just get out, take the win, right? Walk away with a great day. We've had to fight for this here a little bit today, right? And that's okay. Not a big deal. So sometimes we have to fight. I think today I started off the day by saying I'm going to have to work for a living. I had to work for a living here today, and all things considered, it's a good living, right? So really, really well done, team. Hey, no worries, Mike. I like that selfish decision, right? You did what you thought was best for you, and you detached yourself from the outcome. So I have zero complaints about that. Appreciate that, Brian. And yeah, kind of looking like that close was the right opportunity. Yeah, and that that wasn't a slow day, right? That was nearly 2,000 bucks in like 5 or 6 minutes. So, I mean, say what you want, right? But that's that's far from slow. Let's go. What is that from a P&L perspective? We got some big numbers here today, team. We got a couple $1,000 wins. We got a couple $1,200 wins. We got one $4,200 day. Man, you guys are making me feel envious. You guys are crushing it. I love to see it. Yeah, I hear that, Samuel. And one thing I'm really working on here, and this is like a personal self-development thing, I'm really trying to be stoic, Mike. I'm really trying so hard to be like calm and be present, right? And stay in the moment. Because what it allows me to do, right, is to not drain any mental capital when I see this type of bullshit. And then I'm able to take a P&L difference, right? I'm able to make a much better P&L number. And yeah, what a decision to close where we did, guys. 100 points 3 minutes later. This is fuck around and find out price action. Crazy. That's a dangerous button. That's a dangerous button. I'd be careful. Yeah, I love that. Hey, you have a few more $4,200 days. You're going to be the one running the room, not me. So I love that. Congratulations. Hey, sounds good, Mike. Have yourself a fantastic day. And just want to say, man, really appreciate the message you just sent. You put a big smile on my face. So really thank you very much. Again, guys, I started the day off right with gratitude. It's kind of the focus I'm putting on. And I want to finish the day with gratitude as well, right? I appreciate all of you guys so much. I value you all being members of this team. And it honestly puts a huge smile on my face. Honestly, like even borderline tears in my eyes seeing you guys having this success. So I'm very proud of you all. I'm very proud of the work that you're putting in to become the best versions of yourselves. So all I can ask for, and I'm very thankful that you guys choose to play the game with me that way too. I really appreciate it. Nice work, Greg. Nice work. Hell of a day, team. 3 for 3 here. And this has been a very challenging week, right? Green Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here so far. We should be very proud of ourselves. And if that isn't evidence that following your rules makes you money, I don't know what is. So awesome work, guys. Really well done. And yeah, we literally nearly bottom ticked that. Like maybe what? 13 points? 12 point difference maybe? So I got to say I'm a little bit proud of myself here today. Not like in an egotistical way, but I said at the beginning, I started the day off feeling very stressed for some reason, and I didn't allow that to influence my trading. Nor did I allow that to piss me off when I had that first trade stop me out. Again, if I need more evidence, right, that being stoic Mike actually makes me more money, then I'm starting to become irrational. Hey, Anthony, that's great, man, right? You got to build up your tolerance to trust your gut. So closing that trade, right, as your P&L is increasing, going to make it easier to hold it to that next little level the next time, right? And the next little level the next time, and build up effectively the evidence of, hey, ooh, something doesn't feel right. I got to get out. Like trusting that you can manage that behavior. It's a huge difference. I'm not sure if he's still in here, but this is an example that I mention to a lot of people here in our one-on-one calls. And so apologies if you didn't want me kind of putting you on blast, but I mean this in the most positive way possible. But Rusty, right? Rusty has been a DTR member here from effectively the very beginning. He was, I think, my second or third coaching client that I've ever worked with. And what Rusty did for probably the first year of him trading with me, we were trading options at the time, but he set every trade to just close when it was up 10%. And then when it was up 12%, and then when it was up 15%. And he just stacked up so many of these base hits that it was impossible for him to not be green. And then as he built up more and more tolerance to basically trading the strategy and the technique, he was able to build up his gut and learn to hold on for even bigger wins. And then last week, right, this guy had himself a 10K week building off of those concepts, right? Improving those ideas and compounding green days instead of needing that to be all in one trade. And so like that's like a textbook example of applying your personality to your execution. And the more that we can look at as progression as a trader, as like a step system, right? I take one step, get a little bit better. I take the next step, makes it easier to take the next step, yada, 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 yada. Easier it is then for us to be accountable to ourselves and accomplish the objectives that we want. So that's something that has always stood out to me for a very long time, because Rusty outperformed probably 90% of people by just constantly locking in those small wins. But that wasn't his final form, right? It was just accepting that I have to learn to walk before I run. And now he's sprinting past like Usain Bolt with his P&L, right? So those good techniques compound a lot faster than wins. And even one small win a day can turn into an avalanche of positive P&L. So for me, right, an extremely positive example of why being selfish in your trading is ultimately the way you become exceptionally profitable. Oh, Rusty, sorry for putting you on blast. I meant it as the best compliment I possibly could. I figured that would be helpful for a lot of people. So, team, any final questions here? Anything you guys want to go over? I'm not going to place any further trades. Nearly a 3-hour day. So pretty awesome. DTR guests, any questions here? Anything you guys are stuck on? Anything maybe that I didn't explain here well enough, or that got lost in my medical romance or my chemical romance monologues here today? Are we feeling generally chill? Nice work, Jeff. Shoot a great round, man. Lamont, have yourself a great day, man. Enjoy. Hey, appreciate that, Brooke. And yeah, these conditions are treacherous. Yeah, I'm still in the Discord here. Yeah. My Discord username, Robert, Michael DTR. So guys, just as like a little final send off, right? I'm really proud of you all today for how you managed your psychology, for how you controlled the variables in your favor, and how you didn't allow kind of choppy price action to get you distracted or to chase things that weren't there. We waited for our A plus setup. We got nearly 4-to-1 return on risk on that one trade and very quickly covered, right, the loss that we started the day off with. So again, right, today was a 50-50 win rate day, effectively coin flip odds, but flipping tails is worth 4 times more than flipping heads. I've got a great edge there. And really, my job in the meantime is to avoid, right, basically compromising my rules in the first place so that I can basically just survive long enough to get that positive variance in my way. Now, it's not always easy. It's not always fun. It's not always rewarding to sit and feel like, oh my gosh, what could have been? But the more that we maintain that element of control, the more money we make, the more, kind of confidence we build in our technique, and the more fun that this game is, right? So really, really well done, team. Proud of you all today for how you managed this volatility. And appreciate you guys all putting up with my grumpy little demeanor today. So I'll go final call for questions here. Final call for questions. Don't see myself taking any other trades here this morning. And pretty happy with what has been a really strong start to the week. Hey, nice work, Mark. Congratulations. In general, it depends on how you want to structure your trading, Mark. If you're trading a personal account, then you're going to have like margin requirements that are impacting you. If you're going the prop firm route, I'd probably think like a 100K account would be sort of the starting point to trade that with minis. Yeah. So honestly, Mark, you might be in a much better position to just trade prop firms. You're going to have more upside potential, no downside liability, and a larger account to trade with. And when you use these concepts here, you're going to get a 90% P&L split. You'll be able to keep 90% of what you generate. So that might be a much better way to create your proof of concept than trading with that 50K in interactive brokers. Hey guys, I'm really happy with how I traded today. For me, that's the thing that's sticking out the most. Like noticing that I was being like kind of felt like I was starting to cheer for that horse, like I said, right? It ended up being kind of like my pattern breaker, right? Once I caught myself feeling that sensation, okay, I'm now kind of attaching myself here to the outcome versus trading that technically. So once I'm admitting that, yeah, send me a message, Mark. We'll get you all set up here. This is what I help people to do. So send me a message. We'll get you all set up. And so, yeah, caught myself, right, starting to become ego attached to my position, right, which was like that cheering for the win. And once I caught myself in that sensation, right, muscle memory, close, get out, close as your P&L is increasing. And we nearly bottom ticked that. So awesome, right, from that context. That was really fun. And a really strong trading day here where I don't feel like I need to do anything else. P&L again sitting back up well above all-time highs here and have kind of crossed above that psychological threshold that I was stuck at there for a couple days. So really good ability for us to keep trading well, keep making some money, and keep kind of stacking up some wins. In the meantime, right, as long as this volatility maintains or continues to kind of reward us, and we're going to want to combat that extra aggressive price action with a stricter approach to our ability in effectively following our rules. We did a really good job of that here today. So like I said here a couple times, very proud of you all today for how you managed your positions and how you traded. This was a textbook day on managing the stress and anxiety of a highly volatile market. And it feels awesome to walk away green here on the day. So same deal like always, team, right? If you have any questions, hit me up outside of market hours, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, looking forward to trading with you all here again tomorrow, and we'll keep stacking up what has been a really, really powerful week. Have yourselves a great day, team, and we'll talk soon.